What is the most overrated piece of EDC gear? I asked you guys that last week, and you guys had a lot of great answers, and one that stood out more than the rest. Also, at the New York Custom Knife Show last weekend, a knife went walking, which really sucks. That's something we don't like to see in this community. I'll tell you about that. And a Swiss maker who is looking to make knives in the US, which is also kind of crazy. So it's a little bit weird, but there's that and more in this episode of Deep Cuts. My name is Taylor Martin, and let's do the damn thing. All right, first up we have knife news. So the knife that went walking at the New York Custom Knife Show is actually a mini Voodoo prototype from Knoll Knives. We've actually talked about Knoll here on the channel a few times. In fact, we have a new knife from him called the Vandal. We could show you a little more about that in the show and tell. But anyway, the mini Voodoo went walking at the show, which is really unfortunate. It's something we hate to see at these shows because typically, otherwise, all of these shows, Blade Show and all these other custom knife shows, it's just a bunch of friends. All these knife people showing up and having a good time and talking and exchanging and trading and buying and selling. So when anything happens like this, it really puts a damper on things. So there have been a few social media posts from Sean and some other people who have asked for your help locating it. If it ever pops up, let them know, because there's only one of them out there, and if it's out there, it's stolen. So the person who stole it is either gonna have to hang on to it or trade under the radar or something, I don't know. But if you do see something, obviously let Sean over at Knoll Knives know. The second thing, I was just browsing the news the other day, and this popped up and kind of piqued my interest. Victorinox is eyeing US production to offset tariff pressures. That's really kind of crazy. It's not something I would have expected, but I guess it makes sense. We've been talking about tariffs a little bit here on the show and how it's affecting some companies. We talked about it last week. And in fact, I can make a really quick aside about the Leatherman deal. A lot of you guys disagreed with me about the sheath not being a big deal. You're paying the same amount and getting less for it, or in effect paying more for less. I get that. And here's one reason why. It's kind of top of mind today. DeWalt. And it's not just DeWalt, right? It's all these power tool companies. I bought a drill and a vacuum cleaner, and then I was like, oh yeah, I have to go buy a battery to be able to use the stuff that I'm buying. That does suck. So I'm not backing down from what I said. I do think that if the prices were going to have to go up, I still agree that maybe just make the sheath an option that you could get separately, but I'd rather keep the price the same. But I do get what you're saying. It's really easy for things to sneak and slide and slip and just a little bit here and a little bit there, and then before you know it, you're having to buy the interchangeable bit to fit inside your Leatherman, which I'm not saying that's going to happen, but yeah, it does suck. So I agree. I also still think what I said originally, but this is what we've been dealt. Prices are going to go up on a lot of things because metal tariffs have gone into effect 50% here in the US, which is a lot. And I think a lot of these companies, especially US makers, are going to start feeling that squeeze pretty significantly. So hopefully things will change, but if they don't, we're going to have to get used to prices going up for USA made goods. It's just the fact of the matter. So if a company can find a way to keep the prices the same, I'm all for that, but I don't love the idea of getting less for the same money or more. It's just a bad situation all around, but I think the actual true problem with that whole situation is that Leatherman didn't say a word. They ran a sale, but they didn't say a single word about this. And if they had just come out and said, just a video from the CEO or anybody, the marketing team, saying, hey, look, here's what's going on. We're gonna do this temporarily until tariffs ease or whatever, sure, that would have been a better situation. That's not what we got. You guys disagree with me on it. That's fair, I get it. I just thought it was really interesting that the Swiss Army knife, Victorinox, is looking to move to the US to ease some of the tariff pressures. It says the maker of the iconic Swiss Army knife is weighing relocating parts of its production, so not the entire production, to the United States. CEO Carl Elsner revealed they're exploring moving final assembly steps like cleaning and packaging stateside, aiming to reduce the dutiable value of imports by 10 to 15%. This response is driven by steep US tariffs on Swiss goods, now at 39%, combined with a strong Swiss franc, which challenges the company's US competitiveness, sales, and profits. That originally came from Reuters. Really interesting. Did not expect that. And here's a fun little transition into our show and tell. I got two things in the mail from Victorinox. They reached out recently and said, hey, we'd like to send you some things to check out. And I got these in the mail yesterday, and I've actually never owned either of these. I think I've handled an Evoke before, but I've definitely not had a Swiss Tool Spirit. So inside these boxes, we have brand new products. I did play with this yesterday. The Evoke is a tank of a knife. That is a beast. So it is a thumb stud lockback, which is actually kind of, in a way, the part of the inspiration for the Klingman. I had a knife that was thumb stud backlock that I really liked, and I looked for alternatives. I couldn't find anything. And I wanted to make something kind of like that myself. And instead of a back lock, obviously I made it a liner lock, but just that kind of traditional with a thumb stud is an odd combination. I wouldn't say this is super traditional, but this is a beast of a knife. Really cool. I don't know how I feel about it as a knife. Like, I don't know if I'd actually carry this, but I do plan to give it a fair shot, see what I think. But this thing, this was some pretty interesting timing from Victorinox. I've had a lot of people tell me to check out the Swiss tool. I am not familiar with the Swiss tool spirit at all, really. It is a very compact multi-tool. I can tell you right off the bat, the one thing I don't love is that there's no pocket clip, and I don't like this sheath. I think the sheath feels pretty flimsy. It's not my favorite sheath ever. But the tool itself, it's pretty nice. It gives me like PST vibes, although the thing I find interesting is the way that the handle is shaped when it's closed. You've got this, like, the handles come apart, and the tools, when they lock, you have this slide lock to unlock them. But I do think some of these tools feel really robust. I really like that. So here you've got what I imagine is like a little cord cutter or something. It's a shape blade, probably for maybe even wire stripping, but it's like a scalloped, it's like a single serration basically. And then this side is like a chisel. You have a really big file. Nope, that's a saw. There is a file on here too. It's over here. Really interesting. I will have to give this thing a fair shake. I just don't know how I'm gonna carry it. Maybe it'll fit in one of my Talon knives holsters, maybe. I do like that it has not really a thumb stud, but like this thumb ramp for the blade, which is pretty nice. I don't know. Verdict's still out, but I do very much like that. Phillips just straight drive. It's not center drive, but that is really, really nice. So we'll see. Very interesting to see some stuff from Victorinox with all the Leatherman stuff and with this news article about Victorinox. So very interesting. So we'll check some of those out and see what we think about them later. Maybe we'll put them to a test. I don't know. Ricky hates it when I say that because we never do it. I always say, maybe we'll put them to a test, and then we never do it. And I did promise this real quick. We're not gonna spend too much time on it, but this is the Knoll Knives Vandal. It's a really nice, like, big, it's a pretty big folder. I don't know too much about it. I do know that the blade seal is always on here. Vanax, I do remember that. You've got a combo grind, the flat up here at the top and then a hollow here. A big, like, fuller, I guess if you want to call it that, but also thumb studs. I love the thumb studs on the Knoll knives. There's a lot to like about this thing, but it is a big knife. I hate to show you things that you can't buy, but you missed the boat on the Vandal. I'm sorry. I'm terribly, terribly sorry. But anyway, this is the Knoll Knives Vandal. And if you see that mini voodoo pop up anywhere, again, just let somebody know. All right, we've come to the point in the show where we need to thank our channel sponsors who make all of this possible. In addition to you guys, obviously, you still also make this very much possible. But first up, we want to thank Worksharp. They make amazing knife sharpeners. One of my favorites is the guided field sharpener. You can toss it in a bag, keep it in your truck. They're awesome and very affordable. But now they make knives. They have the RMX, which we talked about earlier this year. It's a really nice knife, very innovative, and they do restocks of it every single Monday at 10 a.m. PST. So don't be late because they almost always sell out very quickly. So be there or you'll miss out. All right, next up we want to thank Big Idea Design. They make awesome pins and knives and watches and pocket tools and not flashlights. But actually, so Ricky and I had a disagreement about this last week because in the ad, you didn't see it because Ilya is a mastermind, but I said they make flashlights. And Ricky's like, they don't. But that's also not entirely true. They do have a flashlight. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna do a giveaway. Big Eye doesn't know about this. I'm sure they'll agree to it, but anyway, if you can be the first person to correctly name the product from Big Eye, it has to be their correct name. If you can name that and be the first, we'll give you a Best Damn EDC TPT slide. Game on, good luck. It took me a while and I already knew about it. All right, finally, I wanna thank Carry Commission, and I apologize for how much self-plugging this is gonna be. Carry Commission is my company. It's my retail store where we curate some of my favorite things from the industry, and we just restocked my knife design, which is the tactile knife company, Red Hawk. These might be sold out by the time this video goes live. We had a few at the time of this recording. Right now we have some. Hopefully they'll still be in stock for you guys. If not, there should be some still available over at Tactile or other dealers. There's a lot of them out there now, so hopefully you can grab one before they sell out. If this is not your flavor, and we do have them in stock, Tactile has 3 other colors. So there's a green micarta with a satin blade and a blackout, and we at Carry Commission sell the leather sheath from Chattanooga Leatherworks separately. So if you already have the knife, you can come to us and just get the sheath. It's the only place that you can just buy the sheath by itself. So go check those out. Everything will be linked down below. So now for the community comments, I asked you guys, what is the most overrated piece of EDC gear? I guess the best way to do this is just rip the Band-Aid off. The vast majority of you answered with titanium pry bars. We have a comment here from Colby Venable. I think the most overrated piece of EDC gear is a pry bar. I have a Lynch pry bar and I've been carrying for almost 2 years now and haven't used it once. Maybe someday, we shall see. Hashtag overrated EDC. The next comment is from Nathan M. Haffey. The most overrated EDC item in my book is a pry bar. I have several of them and have never used one of them. And we have, my name is Scott. I believe the most overrated EDC stuff has to be the stuff people weigh down their pockets with and never use because it's cool. Things like titanium pry bars, not the best material for prying, and tiny cobra pliers they never use, parentheses, I use mine, LOL. You're just throwing shade, dude. But yeah, there were a ton of comments saying titanium pry bars, and I don't fully disagree. There are a few situations where a titanium pry bar might be a better material only because it is softer, like brass. I have a brass pry bar, and there are times where you would want to use that because it's a softer material, but you're not really prying with it as much as, you know, a true pry bar. It's really just a wedge at that point. I don't know. But I've been a huge proponent of steel pry bars for a very long time. I have one from ZW, Zach Woods. I did a EDC backpack toolkit video recently, and I have one of his tool steel pry bars in there. And there's this company, Rogan. This is the Mutt. He also makes a smaller one. This is a serious tool. It's just a hunk of steel, and it is tool steel. This is extremely useful. But again, I haven't needed it a ton, but it's just one of those things that if you need it, it's nice to have it, and it's better to have tool steel typically. The next comment comes from W. Toms. He says, the most overrated piece of EDC gear for me is a flashlight. Don't get me wrong, I use a flashlight all the time, but 9 times out of 10, I just use my phone light while my real flashlight sits in my pocket or bag collecting dust. Maybe it's because half the time I need a light, I'm also watching how-to videos on YouTube. Hashtag overrated EDC. I disagree with this wholeheartedly. I use my flashlight as much, if not more, than my knife. Just seeing things, getting around the house at night sometimes, and we have like night lights all over, but just being able to see stuff in the dark. And again, it always goes back to this. I need a flashlight with moonlight because I'm always using a flashlight when other people are asleep. But yeah, I just don't like using my phone flashlight. There are times where I will, and I will say that they've largely or greatly improved is this function right here. So you turn on the flashlight and you can select how bright it is by sliding. That has changed how much I actually like using my phone for a flashlight because I can turn it on really dim. But otherwise, I don't love using it because it's just a pure flood flashlight, right? It's not directed beam, it's just, it lights up the whole room. So I have to like shield the beam. I don't agree with that one, but you're not the only person who commented flashlight, not by a long shot. Supreme Taco says the most overrated piece of EDC gear has to be the mini ratchet set that are pocketable. I wholeheartedly disagree with this one, and I'll tell you why. Over the last 2 weekends, 3 weekends, I've been working on my Colorado. I have an alu cab on it, and I've been putting in a seat delete kit from Goose Gear, and I put on an upgraded, it's called a slide lock for the door. It replaces the strut that pushes the door open when you unlatch it. Both of those things that I had to install, I went through my entire set of Klein tools. I went through my entire tool bag and all the tools I have in my shop, and I have a lot of duplicates and a lot of everything. The only bits that I could find that would fit some of those things were from my Leatherman bit kit. I had to use a ratchet from my Leatherman kit for putting that whole seat delete kit in. I mean, I could have used other tools. I did use some other tools, but that was the one that like actually made the job a lot easier. And when it came to that slide lock, I had clearance issues for all the other tools I was using, the ratchets and sockets and all the socket Allen head or hex keys. I could not fit any of those tools into this little corner bracket, but the little 711L flex head EDC ratchet with the flat end for a Leatherman, perfect fit. And I had the right bits for it. All of the Klein hex keys that I had were SAE, and I actually needed a 5mm, not I guess it was a 3/16 I was using. And once again, the only bit that I could find that actually fit in there and gave me clearance to actually use a tool in this tiny little space was that little mini ratchet. It seems so insignificant, but at the time, it was the best thing in the world. That also is probably true of those little icon ratchet sets that I've talked about. Yeah, I've actually found quite a few uses for those over the last 2 or 3 weeks. Not even just with the truck, some other stuff too. I can't agree with you, man. If you're carrying it around and you never use it, throw it in a bag, leave it at your desk, whatever. The last one comes from Bill Driscoe. Is that how it's pronounced? I don't know. He says watches, particularly very expensive ones, are the most overrated piece of EDC gear. Most EDC items serve more than one task or are inexpensive enough to justify their simplicity, but a traditional watch, smartwatch is excluded. Just tell time. I equate expensive watches to flashy cars. It's just a flex at the end of the day for something that serves one purpose. For me, watches are more jewelry than a tool. Like, it's jewelry that serves a purpose more so than a tool, right? I wear a watch every single day, and I do check the time on it sometimes, especially when I don't feel like pulling my phone out or my hands are full, I can just check. But I'm not really wearing it for function. I'm just wearing it because I like watches. If I go a day without a watch, I feel really, really weird. I do sometimes wear smartwatches as well. I have a Garmin Mark that I've worn the absolute piss out of. Anyway, it's interesting to hear your thoughts on these things. So thanks for responding to that question I had. And then I have one more comment. This comes from Dean, who says, this was a good episode. There really should be a podcast out there where people from the community get together and talk and really make these things known. The Leatherman thing is BS. I don't have much to say about that. I myself don't use the sheath, but I know a lot of people that do. As for the bits, yeah, they should be including them, not the bit kit, but the standard bits. My take on pry bars, I mean, he just keeps going on. Okay, he keeps going on and gives a lot of opinions about a lot of different things, but the part that stood out to me was there really should be a podcast where people talk about some of these things. And I totally agree. I don't know if I'm the guy to do the podcast. Ricky and I have kicked it around a bunch, but I do feel like having a long form discussion with somebody about something like this Leatherman thing, especially this Leatherman thing, would be a lot more helpful than maybe short little snippets, because there's like so much to go into, right? I scratched the surface, but I don't want to do a video of me just talking about this. So having an actual open discussion with someone else about this would actually be nice. And I've kicked around the idea of a podcast for a long time. I've had a lot of people ask me to bring back the whiskey knife fight. That one's just tough. Jeremy and I our schedules do not align. That's where it fell off. My son was born 4.5 years ago. And after that, we just never picked it back up. But I don't know. I don't hate the idea of a podcast. Obviously, this has turned into a podcast every week, but this is me just rambling to a camera and answering your questions and reading your comments. I don't know. Let me know what you think about a podcast. Would you listen to it? Would it be worth our time to make it? I know I'd enjoy it. I like talking. There's no doubt in my mind I would enjoy making it, but is it worth the squeeze? All right, now we're to the carry of the week. This carry comes from Johnny Garcia _Uric. He also has a YouTube channel called Uric Media, and not a lot of stuff in this picture, but I thought it was just a nice picture and some really cool gear. All right, first up we have a green Olight i3T Plus, I believe. I don't think it's an i5T. Either way, it's one of the longer, like 2 AA or 2 AAA flashlights. Next to that is the Kaiser Militol, which I've heard a lot of good things about. I had one at one point. There's also an Olight O-Pin Mini, and then finally an OTR carabiner, which I actually just got in the mail. But it looks a lot like a lot of those like dual chamber carabiners where it keeps your keys on so they're not gonna fall off when you open the carabiner, which is nice and convenient. All Johnny says is minimalist EDC for the city life. And when asked if he needs something for his carry, he just said lighter. So I don't know how to answer that. I don't know what kind of lighter you're looking for. Zippo? I mean, I could plug my lighter, but I don't think that's what you need. I don't know. I'm not sure how to help you, man. But thanks for submitting. And if you would like to submit yours, go to edcw.co and you might be featured in a future episode of Deep Cuts. I'm not going to do a what's in my pockets, guys. Not this week. It's the same stuff as always. So no point in wasting your time, but we will get to the giveaways. All right. So the winner of the Bugout 5-5-09 is Mitch Foster. And he said, this is a specific use case for an EDC item, scissors and file on a multi-tool or SAK to trim your nails. Just use fingernail clippers during your morning routine. I'm probably just weird about this. I clip my fingernails in the most random weird places. I keep fingernail clippers in my truck for that reason because I always forget at home. And it's always in the middle of the day when they're too long and bothering me. So I don't know, man. I like having like a Swiss Army knife with fingernail clippers on it, which is also kind of weird. But anyway, doesn't matter. You won a Bugout. So congratulations. And this week, we are giving away a Civivi Crabby, which comes from our good friend Ken Onion Jr. He is actually local to us, awesome guy, and he designed this knife right here, the Crabby. And if you want to know how to enter to win this, go check your inbox. It's in your inbox in the EDC Weekly. If you're not subscribed to that, you need to be, because that's where the instructions are. So if you missed it this time, sign up now so you don't miss it in the future. But for now, to enter this, go check your inbox, comment down below with the instructions, or following the instructions, to enter to win the Civivi Crabby. Oh, and if you have won a previous giveaway and I've not gotten in touch with you, I will, I promise. I've taken care of most of them, but it's a little bit janky how we have to communicate. I have to go back and reply to your comment, and then I don't get notified if you reply to it. It's a little bit of a legwork thing, but we'll get you all squared away, I promise. And if you see anybody comment and it is not from me on YouTube, don't fall for it. It's a scam. Some people have told me that there are people scamming people in the comments saying they've won the giveaway. Click on the profile. It will take you to my YouTube channel here. That's the easiest way to verify, and I will never send you to another website. I will tell you to email me at this YouTube's email address. So there's nothing else needed from you other than your address and your name. That's it, and I will verify if it's actually you also. So nobody's getting scammed. Just click and make sure it's actually this YouTube channel that's commenting on your comment. All right, that's all for this week. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget there is an audio-only version of this, and you can find it anywhere that you listen to podcasts. All the stuff we talked about, we would link down below. I will see you guys in the next one. Until then, carry on.